disappear like that.
Yeah,
Pop
man.
off, let's go for it. You got the lyrics up?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I do. I hit record already, so we're like zooming. Let's see here. Literally.
We're kicking off. I'm here for it. Well, welcome to Did You Hear That? With myself, ETC, and Sean Michael Thompson. Our guest today, Chicho Malo, aka Jesse. We're gonna be talking about his song No Heart. Happy to have you, sir.
I don't wanna wait for a tragedy to make me see I have something worth living for. Why do I compare myself to everyone else? I don't wanna wait for a tragedy to make me see I have something worth living for. Why do I compare myself to everyone else? Is it too late for it to be me? How can I sleep when everyone around me has more heart than me? Building up the confidence to stand on my own, and every second wasted I know I've been feeling alone. But what's the point if all my problems have been written in stone? They're not. Sorry, I've been tripping, I've been better off hiding my emotions. Is he sad or not? I've been sipping potions, am I dead or not? Dead or not? I don't wanna wait for a tragedy to make me see I have something worth living for. Why do I compare myself to everyone else? Is it too late for it to be me? How can I sleep when everyone around me has more heart than me? Cause I cannot find my heart in everything that I wrote, and I cannot find a start, and I was losing my hope. Do I need to go back just a couple of years when I was falling apart, when I was breaking in tears, and I need an escape? Can you fall in my arms? Can you lead me away from the thoughts in my head? And I know I'm upset, so I sleep when I'm dead. And I know I'm upset, so I sleep when I'm dead. I don't wanna wait for a tragedy to make me see I have something worth living for. Why do I compare myself to everyone else? Is it too late for it to be me? How can I sleep when everyone around me has more heart than me?
You want to just, You want to just kick it off and just tell us, like start it off. Like, what's the generalized vision, theme, and heart, and all that stuff behind your track, bro?
Yeah, for sure. I'll spend a lot of time in my head, right? So I'm constantly beating myself up about whether or not I'm good enough to do what I do, if I can do it. So I think this song was kind of just like me trying to like externalize some of that feeling so I can get it out of me, because I don't want to be that person that beats themselves up about not being good enough or whatever that is. So I think this was my way of kind of like trying to get rid of that.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to go into like how you came about the title for this track and everything as well. But one thing I do think that's really cool about, or one of the reasons I was super stoked to talk about this one, just as a unique piece of work within your collection, is like your typical style is a lot more aggressive, a lot more heavy. And then to have a track title like No Heart, it leans itself towards like the idea that it's going to be heavier, it's going to be a lot more crazy and stuff. But in the short time that I've gotten to know you, like you really do speak heavily on internal insights like that. And so like the way that you played out No Heart, super impressed, man. I just think that you did a really good job with that one, like picking up on kind of your own vibe and then twisting it in a way like that, with even just with the title of No Heart, like one artist to another. I see that and I respect it.
That's a cool way to look at it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't think about it that way, but it's cool that you can like see that. That's kind of cool to wear. Because I think in reality, I was trying to kind of find my sound. I mean,
Yeah.
as you know me as an artist, like I've only, put together, my handful of singles, and I'm starting to understand what I feel like I do and what I do well and what I don't. And it's not like I can't do other things, and I like to do other things as like.
Can you hear me, guys?
Sure, all myself too easily and just out more naturally for sure. But I like the ability to branch out, try other stuff eventually too.
Yeah. Well, your voice is like perfect for this kind of stuff. I was just like semi joking, but mostly serious, and that like you kind of have like, it reminds me of tonally and with a little bit of the accent, it reminds me of like Blink-182 kind of stuff.
Really?
The bridge for this track where you kind of like switch the flow a little bit and I have like the longer, more held out notes. There's just like a flavor of it in there. It's not like I don't know. I don't even know if you would even list them as an influence for you, but I hear a little bit of that like type of tone. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
no, that's cool.
Like, yeah. Well, there's something that's just like a little bit nostalgic and a little bit like your tone is very clear. It has that same type of emotional conveyance as well, where it's like angsty, but also like aggressive and like emotionally driven, but kind of like on like a little bit of like a harsher self-reflective side, like I really dig what you did vocally with this track. Very impressed.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And yeah, for sure. There was like I think I mentioned this prior to this meeting, how I like really angsty music, and like some of my favorite lyrics are all like really depressing. So I was just like, ugh. But it's kind of like, I guess you could tell kind of my music background from how I write and how I sound.
Yeah. So what were some influences? What were you listening to when you made this one? Like what kind of stuff do you see that's influencing on this track that you see?
I was listening to Trevor Daniel a lot and Lil Peep. I think Lil Peep kind of helped me like be like, it's okay to write about sad shit. Like stop pretending that like that's not how you feel, and stop pretending that's not a real emotion that you can actually convey. Like, because I like to pretend like I'm not gonna say like I'm hard, but I guess like I don't always show that side of me that's very vulnerable. I don't show that side at all, I feel like. And I was like spending like the time frame that I wrote the song, my girlfriend wasn't staying with me, and I wasn't like we weren't together. She had to go back with her family who lives in Colorado, and she was spending time there, and I understand that she needs that time, but that gave me a lot of time to like self-reflect. And that kind of like during the time I was listening to Lil Peep, and that kind of opened me up to being vulnerable. And then Trevor Daniel kind of opened my mind to different styles of singing, because I noticed that like I wrote things very chorus, verse, that sounds like the next verse, chorus, we're done. And as I listened to this artist, I was like, wow, this guy he's like a rapper, but he's a singer for sure. But like he switches his sing flows up. And I thought that was super interesting. And I kind of like started picking up on how to like approach a song differently, and that kind of helped me like grow a lot just in one song.
I went through something similar listening through Earth Gang, which is something that I was listening to heavily when we were doing some of the Sorrow sessions and stuff. But like when you can lean into a new artist like that, or not, maybe I don't know if he's new for you, but just like another artist and pull something out like that you can really bring to your own stuff. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it really helped.
So you want to start jumping into these lyrics? I don't know if you have that, if you have it pulled up like I do on my screen.
I can see them, yeah.
Okay, cool. You want to just start, like, we don't have to go line by line if you don't want to, but any different part in there that you want to really like share like a particular vision on, like dive into it, man. That's what this is for. For
sure. I do want to start with the first line, because
we'll go through any and all of them you want to.
Yeah, I don't want to wait for a tragedy to make me see I have something worth living for. I think that's like something that I see a lot of people that become successful or that are just raw, talented people who have gone through so much and been through so much that I feel like, have you guys ever seen Full Metal Alchemist?
Yeah.
Some of it, yeah.
I think of life kind of like that, because it kind of, the proof is in the pudding, I feel, where people that have been through hardships have more to give, I feel, or people that have gone through it understand the low, so they reach those highs so easily, I feel.
Sort of
I
like
think,
wisdom comes through suffering kind of idea.
in a sense. So I think this line for me was like, why do I have to wait till I'm at my lowest of my low before I can reach the best of my best? And I thought that was something stupid that I feel like is kind of true, that I don't want to sit around here and wait for something bad to happen. I don't want to wait for my parents to die or someone close like that I love to pass away before I have some sort of like some reason to,
or whatever.
yeah. I don't like that idea that you are only better after the fact, that something wrong happens. You should just be better or do better and don't take things for granted,
Dude, I love that. Honestly, I fully agree. I think that that's like a hard life lesson to put into practice,
For sure.
It can definitely be very challenging, but that's totally like, I've been learning and leaning into the same ideas myself lately, when it's just like, I have friends who have lost their parents, and like when my grandma passed away earlier this year. My grandpa's like has some pretty serious health concerns and stuff, and I've been like thinking about the same kind of stuff. Like me and my mom, like I grew up super close with her as an only child and stuff, and like taking advantage of the fact that I have her present now is something I really need to like just be conscious of. Because like you're saying in your song, but also like you said in like your explanation there, where it's like, if you wait until it becomes a tragedy to enjoy it, then all you have is that tragedy. Like you don't have you don't get to enjoy that. Like what I tend to think about often is like I think about it the most with my dog. When he does like little annoying things, like or just like with your pets, when they do something that's like annoying, like get for my dogs, like if they get crazy barky or if they're like biting at my hands a lot and I'm like playing a video game or something, I tend to think about the fact that like, how would I feel about them doing this thing if I had like just lost them? Like, I one of the things that I think about a lot along the like a similar line was I heard someone talking about going through grief and like being like, all that stupid shit that used to make you so angry, like you would give anything just for them to do something stupid to you, like after you've lost them, like so like thinking about my dog barking at 2 a.m. like after I've lost my dog, hearing him bark at 2 a.m. I'd be like, oh my, like I'd be so relieved, you know what I mean? Like it would just like fully change your perspective on that moment. But like so yeah, I totally see that, and I totally concur with your conclusion. I think that like it's a hard challenge, but it is necessary to learn to appreciate the beauty of the things that we have without the loss. I think part of the reason that that's a challenge is because the human brain operates so often in dichotomies of black and white, like yes, no, big, small, like we do so much through the lens of comparison. But one of the awesome things about being where we're at in evolution and our human understanding and everything like that is we have the ability to influence those like impulses. And so instead of just living in a world where it's like, well, I'll appreciate you once you're not here, because you have that like inverse in comparison, learning to appreciate when you have them now is something that we have that's like, it's a unique opportunity afforded to human beings. It's not afforded to other creatures, but also because it's unique to us, it's something that definitely needs to be practiced. like you don't just fall into appreciating the things that you have before you're gone. Like you have to decide to do that. And I think, yeah. So I hear what you're saying. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. And it also came from kind of like the lack of inspiration too, because I couldn't write. I was having writer's block for months on end, and it was like really awkward for me because I had just put out a few songs, and this was kind of like the last one I was doing before I moved on. And I was like, why can't I get anything out of my head? Like why, like, and I was like, I'm just gonna live life for a little bit, kind of let things come to me, and pull from my experience. And that's kind of what I let happen, like where like I don't want to sit around and wait for something you know, to happen bad or something. Like it could be like me, you know, drugs, or it could be like alcoholism, because people have different struggles, and it doesn't always have to be someone dying, right? But it was essentially like, you have the chops, like you can do it, but you just got to dig deep. You got to dig deep even when there's nothing like pushing you to dig deep.
Find
You know what I
internal
mean?
motivation.
Because motivating myself is probably like my biggest battle, for sure.
Dude, definitely. Yeah, I hear you. So, so moving on to the next verse section. Let's see. Why do I compare myself to everyone else? Is it too late for me to be? Is it too late for it to be me? How can I sleep when everyone around me has more heart than me? Yeah.
Okay. With this, for sure, it's kind of very in the lyrics, right? I compare myself a lot, and I have to learn to stop doing that, because everyone's different. Everyone's gone through different stuff, and I need to understand that, like, the way that I'm gonna go through life is very different. The way that I'm gonna show up later is gonna be very different. But people that like got it now, or like, you ever see a kid that like started skateboarding when he was like young, and now he's like shredding, and you're just like, Jesus, like, how did I, you know, like fall so behind? That like bugs me. So I think like I do see a lot of like my you know, friends in the music scene doing their thing, going off, and of course I need to learn to be happy for them and stuff like that. But it also puts like a fire in my ass that's like, fuck, like I need to get on my shit, and I need to start like writing more and working more on my stuff. And sometimes I just feel like they have more of that want than I do.
Dude,
you know what I mean? And I need to start like stop, like I just need to like ignore that and kind of just like feel that myself. And I think that's kind of like what this verse is about. I just need to stop thinking about everyone else and start thinking about myself.
Yeah, that's honestly that's a big concept in circles of like pursuit of inner peace, you know, like self-evolution, self-care. The idea, even in religious circles, you know, Jesus said, don't compare yourself to others and let tomorrow worry about tomorrow, that kind of stuff. You know, I think it's a really common position for human beings to be in, because like I said, we tend to compare as like our methodology for determining what's good or bad, or what we want it to be versus what we don't want it to be, and that kind of thing. Like, and I've been learning a lot of that same lesson too. The older I get, the more I understand what it means to respect and cultivate your own process, because it really is like, you really Albert Einstein has a quote that if you always measure a fish by how well it climbs a tree, it's always going to think it's dumb. You know, like not everyone is capable of doing all the same things. We may all be like, we might find ourselves in similar lanes, but you know, like I have friends whose lives have gone in entirely different directions from my own. And no matter how similar we are as individuals, but I have found if I spend my time comparing myself to my friends that are farther along in the process than where I want to be, rather than examining my own process, I end up like stealing my own peace and making myself incapable of progressing. Like it hurts you in your path of progress, and to sit and compare yourself. Because then, like for me, I don't know if it's universally true, but at least for me, it tends to paralyze me. You know, like I just all of a sudden, instead of taking the step that's in front of me, I'm stuck staring at the mountain ahead of me.
Yeah, like what's the point?
Yeah, like I'm
just
never gonna be able to
thoughts.
climb that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you're just missing out on the opportunity of like, who cares if you get to the top or not? Like, just start your climb and love the journey. You know, like that's really the biggest thing, like for sure.
Yeah, I for sure like kind of took it onto myself pretty early on to be like, if I ever quit, I'm never gonna make it. But if I don't quit, like even if I don't make it, at least I never quit, and that's better than just straight up failing. So
dude, that's an awesome goal. Yeah,
that's like my only thing that keeps me going. Like there's no point in stopping, because no one else is gonna, like, you just gotta keep going.
Yeah, me and my wife have had a lot of like late night conversations about like what I want to do for myself in music and stuff too, because you know, like we all like a little bit have that dream of being like the next Kanye or whatever, you know, like just like a superstar in whatever we're doing. But also we have like realistic expectations, we have our doubts, we have our fears, we have everything in between as well. And, you know, just kind of like what I've been trying to do for myself is like honing in on the things that I love about what I've done so far and just really pouring into those. And if anything else comes out of it, then I'm excited for it, you know, but like, but mostly just as an artist, like I think the best art comes from when you really love what you're doing. Like you're not just like faking it or producing some product. You're just like, I just wanted to say this, and if other people fuck with it, then that's awesome. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, like because like I've mentioned before, like when I was writing those other songs, they were definitely fun to do, but a lot of times I was just kind of coming up with BS, to be real with you, and just putting it out there because it was good for me to express myself and trying to, you know, find my sound. And then now that I'm starting to like dial in on the things that are really out there and bothering me, that I feel for sure you can tell the music elevates itself for sure.
Definitely. You know? Yeah, for sure. I totally hear that. And I don't know if you feel this as well, but for myself, whenever I like there have been times in the past where I've been asked to feature on other people's tracks and stuff, and it's just like a struggle to come up with something because the inspiration wasn't organically from myself, you know? And like there is like you know, like there's like the practice of music where you write enough and eventually you develop the skill, and so you can perform even if your heart is not fully in the thing that you're trying to create. But there is like a difference in self quality. Like I love the songs that I've come up with on my own, that like the inspiration came to me organically, the material is organic, versus ideas that I've like sat out and like worked out and workshopped and like, you know, like really like fought for. There are times where those ideas are, I'm just like, this is nowhere near the potency and awesomeness of the shit that just flowed out of me on accident because I just really felt it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know, when like you're writing songs, like how the first idea you kind of have is like the best one, and you're like, oh, what did I do? Oh no!
Like I messed it up.
Yeah, you taint it by fucking with it. Yeah.
So now I just like hit record before I even start messing around.
Hell yeah, man.
Awesome.
Well, let's go into the verse real quick.
Yeah, for this part, I think I want to talk about if all my problems have been written in stone. But what's the point if all my problems have been written in stone? And then I think that whole section is kind of just based around that idea. And a little insight is the hiding my emotions. So all of that is just like, what's the point of trying? Because there's no, if there's always a point in trying, because there's no like written stone, like your tombstone isn't already made for you, you know? Like there's no sure line path for you, dude. Anything can happen, and you just got to keep going. So that's just a little bit more reinforcement of the idea of like the song. Exactly.
I like that, and I really like the what's the point if all this has been written in stone? Like what you just described is really awesome, but what that like made me think of as well is the idea of like so one of the things that I've been wrestling a lot with in my own counseling sessions and therapy is like, what is the line? What's the line that we need to cross in order for us to determine that we've completed something, or we've gotten better, or like, you know, like I've done the work and now like I am to where I want to be when it comes to like mental health and these different things and that kind of stuff. And what you're talking about in this song when it comes to feelings of inadequacy and that kind of thing, like determining whether or not some one of those problems that's like weighing on you, whether or not it actually is set in stone, is like step one of that whole process of self-reparation. You know, like if you determine that what you're battling, it's kind of like I think of it like the AA prayer. I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's something like give me the serenity to accept the things that I can't change, and the power to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. You know, like knowing whether or not the problem you're facing is set in stone or not is like okay, is this in me genetically, or is this in me circumstantially? You know, like and being able to come to a conclusion on that gives you the power to keep going, you know, especially because if you get to a point where you can conclusively say, yeah, no, this is not written in stone. Like, this is not my life forever. This is a hard season that I know I can grind the stone down and write something new, you know, like I don't have to be stuck in this place. But the first step comes from determining whether or not you actually are in a permanent condition or not. So
Yeah. And there's like a part right here at the end that is like kind of hidden between like the last few sections, but am I dead or not? It's just kind of like that question to yourself. It's like you have the power to still do things. You're not in a place where you can't make things change. Am I dead or not? You're not dead. So you're never done growing and you're never done making those changes. And the first part is I'm building up the confidence to stand on my own. And every second wasted, I know I've been feeling alone. That part is like kind of like reminding yourself that you have people that you can lean on. And if you're wasting your time thinking that you're alone on this because you're not.
Dude.
I like that.
Yeah. That's really fucking cool.
So then does the chorus then lead to that second verse where it talks about like you're searching for that heart that you're seeing in everybody else's work, and kind of talks to then up there about, because I can't find my heart in everything that I wrote, can't find start, and I was losing my hope. So it's obviously you're searching, right, for that sound, that feeling.
Yeah, it's like it goes back to that whole thing I was talking about, how like you can't find inspiration sometimes, and it's like, do I need to go back just a couple of years when I was falling apart? Is the idea of like do I have to be the worst version of myself to you know, like write something that's real? And then that's like the thing that I struggle with.
You have to suffer to create organic art.
Sometimes it feels like that, and I want it to be that, but a lot of times that's just true, and it's weird.
Dude, I heard a lot on that particular subject after Chester committed suicide. Chester from Linkin Park, because so much of Linkin Park's music for so long was like about his depression and about his, like, you know, and being a band that was as massive as they were and produced as many songs as they did and was constantly diving into that place for his writing, you know, there was that concern that was like, did that contribute to his condition, because he spent so much time living in that place. And even as a musician myself, you know, like before I pursued counseling and medication and everything to help me with my anxiety and depression, was like, you know, like the fear of like, well, if I get better, am I going to take away my inspiration from my music? You know, am I gonna, you know what I mean? Like, like that fear is real. Like, I legitimately, before I started doing all that stuff, I literally had a nightmare that I was emotionally blank.
I wanted to bring up a conversation from, I think Jamie Foxx was talking to Joe Rogan about how sometimes when things are broken in his house, he leaves them broken. And even though he has money, he'll leave them broken. And then like his family will ask him like, why haven't you fixed this? He's like, because how am I supposed to write funny material if everything's perfect?
Dude, yeah, that's
was
a
funny.
real thing. Yeah.
Like I was like, faucet's creaky or whatever, and he's like, leave it because I need something to bitch about, you know?
Yeah, to create that material. Yeah, well, I think maybe even that goes back to your first point of wisdom coming from suffering and like life experience happening in places where life happens, where difficulty and struggle is. It's actually, you know, that makes me think of another thing that's really interesting, which is that like I was watching this TED Talk and they were going through the process of defining what death actually is. Like, at what point do you medically declare something as dead versus alive? And like, how do you define those differences? And one of the interesting things was basically like, there's a lot that goes into it, but like a really boiled down description is ultimately whatever is living is actively resisting death. So like everything is in the process of dying. But things that we qualify as alive are the things that are burning. They're burning more energy than they're losing. And so, or they're able to produce, if they're able to consume and produce more energy than they're losing. And so like, so their body stays in motion. So anything that is alive, top to bottom in the entire universe, whatever it is, can only be alive if it is actively resisting being dead. And so like, so every form of life, whether like any form of joy, any form of like good thing, anything that we kind of like conflate with the ideas of life in our world. So like warmth, you know, like even things as like when you boil it down to things like energy and, you know, energy usage and that kind of stuff, it's all like, it all comes from a point of first struggle and conflict. And out of that struggle and conflict comes something like life. I also heard another thing once from, I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was talking about how we often look at the chaos of the universe and think, man, I can't believe we survived that to get to where we are now. But what he pointed out is he was like, actually, you exist because of that chaos. Like if it wasn't for the chain of events that led to this moment here, you wouldn't be here. So like the crazy eruptions and explosions and everything are all part of who you are, you know?
Yeah, that made me think of Yes Man, where like at the point where like he was realizing that he was saying no to everything, that everyone was just assuming he was dead. There was that like part where they're like, "Oh, hey, how's everything going?" And he's literally on the couch, like
And
frozen,
he's got the fly on his face,
in his eye, landing in his eye. And I was just thinking about like, because if you don't head on into those conflicts, and if you don't go like face first into what you think is scary, you're never going to grow. You're never going to get anywhere. And I think about that a lot, because you can stagnate, and a lot of people don't go for what they consider a pipe dream or whatever, and they'll eventually just die, and they'll have nothing to show for it, in the sense of like whether or not they had the ability to do anything they really wanted, but they were told, or they felt like they had to do something that they didn't want to. Well, that's why a lot of people like end up just kind of disappearing and just like into their own lives, like to their day job and stuff. And I think it's important to obviously take care of the things that are important, but also find what makes you happy and do that until you can eventually only do what makes you happy.
Feels like a lot of people are on autopilot, that they
Right.
find the job that pays the money, they find the wife, the kids, and then they coast.
Like the what's
Nothing changes.
expected. Right.
All flatline.
Yeah.
And then, that, in my eyes, I hate to be rude, but I feel like that, in a sense, is dying.
I
A
totally
part of
hear
you
you on
dies.
that. Yeah. Well, I mean, even like I said, going back to the scientific definition of it, if there's no resistance, then there's no activity. There's no real life to that person. You know, just like like from the base definition of what is life. You know.
Definitely.
So
Yeah,
there's another line at the end of this, and it's in parentheses. So I know it's probably like a background lyric, but and I know I'm upset, so I'll sleep when I dead. Can we dig into that a little bit? Because yes.
Yeah. The whole idea that we kind of just like we talked about, where like the whole resisting, right? That's for sure where this kind of came from. Is like I know that there's things that are bothering me, but the most important thing is to be able to push through those things, because I'm not dead. I could still fight through all the pain. I could still fight through all the sorrow. I can dig deep and keep moving forward. Like just because I'm upset, just because I'm sad, just because I'm depressed, doesn't mean that I should stop fighting. Like, and that's something that I definitely have to remind myself, you know, struggling with anxiety and depression. It's one of those things where it's like always the back of my head. It's always eating at me, but I have to like basically ignore it and just keep going. So that's definitely where that line came from.
Like that meme, it's like vacuum the carpet, make your bed, ignore the existential,
existential
dread. Ignore it.
Dude,
Ignore it.
Yeah, that's a real thing. Well, and also like, I mean, for myself, just speaking from my own experience, I definitely hope that you don't always have to be running from it. Like hopefully you get to a point where you can exist with it in some degree. But yeah,
don't we all?
Yeah, for real. I mean, that's not, like you said, like that's not a reality for everyone. For some people, you can get to a point where you can have you can either overcome those symptoms or come to a place where you live with them in a way that works for you. You can still function and live in your life. But you know, not everybody gets there. But the opportunity of trying, I guess it's different for everybody. For myself, the trying came from being exhausted from being exhausted, you know, like just being so upset with being so upset all the time. Like that's really what like pushed me into pursuing health and that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, it's okay. No, like my girlfriend had pushed me into getting diagnosed because she thought I had ADHD. And that was what she was like, hey, like, I know you struggle with like focusing, and I'm pretty sure if you do have an issue with that, we can find you some help. And then
Just
I
get you
was
some
like,
help,
all right,
yeah.
I'm open to it. Because a lot of times, I don't know if this is the same in every home, but like I was kind of like raised to like ignore when like you have a mental problem. Those are things that are just kind of taboo in my house. It's like, whatever. Like,
That's a lot of people. Yeah.
So I kind of always ignored it, even though it was obvious that like I've always had like an issue paying attention sometimes. And she was like, you definitely need help. And then after I, was diagnosed, like I was like, all right, so what do we do about the ADHD? And they're like, oh, well, let's not worry about that. There's something more important. And then I was like, oh,
you're like
dear.
checking all the red flags. And
Yeah. They're like, you're dealing with a lot more than you think you are. And I'm like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And then I was like,
it was like my second appointment with a nurse practitioner. I had been struggling with some mental health difficulties, and I had gone in and I'd seen this counselor for a while. She'd helped me through dumping my ex-girlfriend and kind of getting through that. And then, so I went and I saw this NP, and she goes, let's give it 90 days. If you still feel this way when you come back, like, we'll put you on medication. Try that. I came back in 90 days, like smiling and happy. And she goes, clearly your ex-girlfriend just sucked then, huh? I was like,
jeez.
Whoops. It was weird. It was a strange thing, but I mean, honestly, like circumstances can be the entirety of it. The journalist Johan Hari talks about how depression is caused by lack of connection, addiction is caused by lack of connection, and then stagnation, lack of growth.
Lack of growth, for sure. I can see that.
Yeah.
So before
well, that's good stuff, man. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
I was just gonna say, before we close out, is there any other lyrics you'd like to highlight or anything before we move on to our last couple of questions?
Yeah, no, I think that it's kind of short now that I read the lyrics, but yeah, that's basically all of it. It's a pretty concise idea through and through.
It is, yeah. No, I really like, we've had a couple artists on here who've had like some pretty short lyrics and that kind of thing, but I feel like this is what you wrote about in this is such a huge emotional experience that like, you don't need to say everything, you know what I mean?
It's like the difference between blues and prog metal. With blues, it's not the number of notes you hit, it's the spaces in between. Whereas with prog metal, it's all about the technicality.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. Well, we typically close out the interviews with a question on what is one of your favorite lyrics around. It doesn't have to be one of your lyrics, but it can be. And yeah, I'd like a favorite lyric of yours, why you love it, what about like what it makes you think of, that kind of thing.
I really like Counterparts, but as I was reading through some of them, I was like, geez, what's wrong with this guy?
Dude, I used to listen to
one
Blue
that
October.
he said, Blue October.
Like that I grew up on that band, and just like the amount of drama in it, like it's hard to surpass, you know?
Yeah, like he's very like nihilistic and like cynical. So I'm like reading through some of this, and it's like, yikes, man! Like you need more help than I do, probably. But he has this lyric in the song "Soil" off of I forget the name of the album, even though I just read it. But the last lyric is, "You are your own memorial. Find your mark and make it." And I like that.
I like that a lot. It's been a while since I've listened to Counterparts.
Yeah, they were like that band for me, like the band throughout high school.
Nice. I was the guy that was into Korn really, really heavily until I was like 18. I had like long hair to my waist and wore all black and Korn shirts all the time. It was a fun time.
Chains on your jeans.
No, I wasn't like the DC shoes on.
I wasn't that deep. Black Converse and jeans, and I was good. But
Gotcha.
we're not going that far. I knew all those kids. I hung out with all those kids. They were all my friends. But that's awesome. I like that lyric. So then we'll close it out then, and I will hit and.